My name is Rokko Miyoshi. I'm going to set the timer because I only have 5 minutes. It's not a lot to explain all of my work. Okay, so basically, I take the human condition as a central theme of my work, and I examine the elusive nature of reality, be it just conceptual, virtual, or just physical. And more specifically, I explore what is immaterial, intangible, and ephemeral, and I try to render these visible. I'm just going to show you a small series of obstacles. So this first one is site-specific as most of my work. I did this 2 years ago in a residency where they invited a group of artists. So I found these two staircases made of steel, which I placed in this space so that they could use the first staircase to climb onto this higher ground. And on this ground, I placed a second staircase, which I tilted 90 degrees backwards so that it would become some kind of obstacle. I take the idea of obstacles from Buddhism, since in Buddhism life is suffering, and I try to portray this as obstacles that we face in our daily lives. This is, maybe I don't know if you can really see it. Okay. This is an actual fence from my window in my house, which I reproduced twice. And I placed one horizontally and one vertically, and I interlocked them so that one would render the other one useless in its function. So basically, it's a fence which could become a ladder, but they're rendered useless by this connection. Following ladders, this is a simple old wooden ladder which when some artisans restore it, they use products like oil and fixatives to render them more beautiful. Here I invert the process. I place a fixative first and the oil later, so that the oil never penetrates the wood and it never dries, rendering the latter too slippery to use. This is another site-specific installation where I made a staircase by multiplying by 2 each step. So it starts with 2 centimeters in height, and it keeps on multiplying, doubling in size until you can't climb the staircase anymore. This is also, again, a site-specific sculpture which I made in a gallery which has a curved shape. It's sectioned in 7 parts. So each part of the gallery has this trapezoid shape, which I reduced in size, and I cut them in wood in the hundreds, and then I stacked them. I played with them until I found that by stacking them, you could create a sphere, which I then covered with cement and asphalt, which are two of the materials I usually use a lot. But no, this series is also dealing with Greek mythology, Sisyphus and the Cyclops. This again, more than site specific, is also time specific. This was no more time. This was found in the data of the terrorist attacks, and so I actually inverted this fence. I curved it and inverted it so that it would stand by itself. Inverted it so that it would look like a flag that is inverted when in times of stress. I also placed some cement dust powder so that people could leave their traces around it. I placed it in the middle so that the viewer wouldn't know if they were standing in front or behind the fence. Okay, now maybe I could go into some of my last work. This was an installation dealing with power, authoritative powers, and the transition in powers that we have been going through in the last 50, 60 years, just after 1945. I start with placing a set of rulers which measure 1 meter. And here I especially wanted to show how specific, precise tools that we take for granted are actually not that precise at all. I don't know if you can tell, but this one is 1 millimeter off, the other one, and it's also curved. So one of the rulers is it's not really straight. And these are mass-produced rulers which have been produced probably in the last year. And from these set of rulers, I go into another set of rulers. So these are 3 power elements. So I can start with a suitcase, which is actually an American electronic voting booth, which are still used today, even though they can be really easily hacked. This one is specific from the 2000 elections where Bush won by a small margin in Florida. So this one is actually from Florida. And I keep it closed because the way I see democracy has been overpowered by other elements, especially by political and more precisely by corporate powers, which are the next elements and which are standing higher in this installation. So here you can see this vase, which is actually the negative space of the bust of Mussolini made by Bertelli in the 1930s. So I actually went to the Imperial War Museum in London to get the real accurate measurements, and from there I filled this negative space, which gave me this strange looking vase, which I reproduced in 3D. And yeah, from there I guess we can move onto the third power element, which is represents corporate power, which is standing above the other 2. I presented this as an economical graph, since we live in a neoliberal capitalist system. And the third object is something like this. It's a coin stack tray. It's used to stack coins and to count them more easily. Yeah, these are like some of the objects which I collect. And yeah, I wanted to point one of the worst elements in neoliberalism, which is amassing capital, which is kept in banks to produce more capital, and which is never actually used. So yeah, these are some of my obstacles. Thank you.